Welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast. And it's Friday, which means we have our great friend Austin Ellis back on with us. Like we kind of talked about before, we're going to try to do most Fridays to where we have Austin on talking about, things that you as the audience are going through and questions that you have that obviously Amy and I can answer. We need an expert on. So, you'll be seeing a lot more of Austin. We're working on as we mentioned before, we're working on a great project together, which we'll be announcing here in the future. But welcome back to the podcast, Austin.
Thank
We
you.
love to have you.
Excited to be here. Love to help the challenges people are facing, and it's challenging, as you know. So glad we have some answers and some tools. I think is the most important thing. Information is great, but how do we apply it to
Yeah.
really get where we want to be is important. So
Well, in the two episodes you and I did together, we were missing Amy, so the audience is probably just silent underneath, but like, oh my heck, Amy's back. I know.
I think you forgot that we put our episode in the middle of that. I wasn't like gone
Ah, that's
two
true.
weeks in a
That's
row.
true.
nice,
You keep saying that.
funny.
I'm like, nope, right here. Today we are going to dive into, we talk a lot about emotional intimacy coming first, and a lot of husbands will comment and be like, it's always about the wife. It's always about the wife. But I just want to reiterate that we 100% believe that marriage takes two. We 100% believe that both spouses' needs are equally important and they just sometimes look different, right? And that takes good communication and all those things. But a couple weeks ago with you, the two of you did, how to be a better husband and more godly husband and just be that guy, that she married and fell in love with and how to, just be that guy. And so
Have I been a better husband the past 2 weeks
you were already
since
great.
that
You were already
podcast?
great. So today I was just like, let's talk about what it means to be a better wife. Because if you really love God and love your family, being a good wife is a really big part of that, right? Like it's really important for us to look back and be like, I need to be pouring into this marriage too. We expected our husbands to pour into the emotional intimacy and all these things, but we need to be pouring into our marriages too.
Yeah.
So I would love to dive into that. Like, what does that look like? We have some questions that some of the audience has asked us, that we can talk about today. And I hope when people get done listening, think, we both need to be pouring in for this marriage to be at the passion level that we wanted or the healthy
Yeah.
level, right? So,
Yeah, one of my thoughts there is it's so funny because I remember doing a women's event, and I was like, I'm not right, I'm not a woman, I'm not feminine, but being a couples therapist for so long, like you hear the differences between men and women and the different wants and needs in a relationship, and it's interesting because so many women that I work with, they know their needs aren't being met, but they don't actually know exactly what their needs are. Same can
So
hold true
true.
for men, right? I think we get this stereotype of all men just want sex, and I don't think that's accurate. I think men want intimacy.
mhm,
I believe men want emotional intimacy, and that's typically sought through sex, but that is typically about emotional bonding more than I just want something physical, right?
right.
And so, when I work with, couples, when you talk about this idea of like what does it mean to be a good wife? I think it's a similar approach for the wife as it is the husband, which is I'm all in, right? Like I'm a half of this relationship. I tell couples when I sit down with them, I say, neither one of you are my client. Like, I'm not taking your side, I'm not taking your side. Like, your relationship is the client. And if the relationship is going to succeed, both sides have to pour into that, right?
That's
I
awesome.
love that.
So good.
So
Yeah,
important.
so I think for when we have this conversation about what does it mean to be a better wife, I think it is along those lines of how do I be the best spouse I want to be, and that's a value set, right? That's independent of if my spouse is being perfect or not. Who do I want to be? Do I want to be loving? Do I want to be available? Do I want to be, patient, right? Do I want to give? With the idea of I'm pouring in, nurturing my spouse, nurturing my marriage, and trusting that I can ask for that reciprocation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you're saying. and I also feel like, both on men and women's side, but we're talking more about how to be a better wife today. But I often feel like sometimes it's like, well, to be a better spouse, I'll just give in to whatever their needs are, even if I'm not enjoying it or I don't want it or, things like that. And that doesn't work either. Like
Right.
being a better spouse means that you're talking, you're asking questions, you're trying to understand how your spouse feels and why they feel the way they do instead of just saying, "Oh, fine, I'll give it to you." You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
Mhm.
Right. So many women will men do this too, right? They'll quote unquote meet a need, but they'll do it not from a place of love, right? If our motivation for doing something nice in our relationship is obligation, the other person feels that, whether it's emotional or sexual or spiritual or parenting or whatever, right? And so, in the therapeutic realm, with a lot of clients, we do have a dialogue of the difference between a need-based marriage and a want-based marriage. Like for me, it's like, yeah, I absolutely want to meet my spouse's needs. I want to meet their wants, right? And I want to be in a relationship where the things I want are important to my spouse too. When we talk about just needs, that's a lot of like, we're just focusing on what's being deprived from you that you need just to to breathe, right? Our suggestion, right? The whole concept of ultimate intimacy, and I would suggest a covenant relationship, which marriage is a covenant, is this agreement that two are going to become one together, right? And I'm going to grow as your spouse. Like that's a role, that's a value. I want to be the best spouse I can be specific to you, not, other people. Like other people's needs don't matter. You're my spouse. And so, as we have this conversation about wives, like going to your husband and saying, what, like, and clearly men can do this too. What do you need in me, your spouse? And like, that's the role. And I would say here, one of the important things is a lot of people's needs in marriage, I would suggest actually can't be met by the spouse. I think a lot of times couples take what is probably between them and God to their spouse. And I think we need to be a little bit realistic with what can we take, what should we be taking to God and what should we be taking to our spouse. And we can go more in depth with that because when couples understand that, the ways that they start to connect, it's more of that pouring in concept. It's like, hey, I'm in a good place. I just love you and I want to be your friend and I want to go on a date because I love you, not because I'm, depressed or anxious or
Yeah.
needy or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't really like the word need because it kind of portrays like, taking something or having to give I don't know. I mean, maybe there's another
Yeah.
word, but
I don't know what that word
I
is.
don't know what
It,
that word is, but
right.
yeah.
It is, it is
My hobby,
a,
not the word.
I mean, unfortunately, a lot of times we look at this and it becomes kind of a parent-child relationship, right? Like, I need something from you that I can't provide for myself. I think it's much better, even when it's like emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy, like to approach your spouse and say, "Hey, I need something from you." That's about self. And I think both intimacies, emotional, sexual, spiritual, it should be, I want to connect with you.
Yeah.
I want to bond with you. You're my other half, and I'm missing I'm missing that bond, that closeness. And I think when clients switch or couples switch into, I would call it a desire-based relationship, things change because we start being responsible to have our own emotional needs met. Now, we can get those met with our spouse, but it's still our emotional needs
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that we request, not, demand, not have entitlement to. When we're entitled to our spouse sexually or emotionally, now it's like we own them, not they're sharing themselves with us. And
Right.
this has caused a lot of problems with couples, as you can imagine.
Oh, we hear it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So to the wives, one of the things that I think is really valuable, and we talked about this in the episode to men, right? Like we have to be aware that There are women out there that are pouring in. They are meeting their husband's needs. They are being, whatever he's requesting, and they are hoping, like, hey, I can show up in the way he's asking, and I will get some reciprocation, and they don't,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
That happens a lot. We talked about that in the other episode, why. And so there are, I mean, I've worked with a lot of couples over the years where they'll come in and a husband will say, yeah, like I'm happy. I'm not really sure why we're here. Like all my needs are being met. And she's like, right.
Right.
All your needs are being met. Mine
Mine
aren't.
aren't.
Mine are.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so I think for women in that situation, like you're trying to live from a value system of like I'm pouring in, I'm pouring in, I'm pouring in. My suggestion there is, this will sound a little bit strange, is to start to not withhold, okay? Not like pull back, not give up. It is to step up into a place of saying, "Hey, I'm pouring in and I want to be with you in a way that I'm of equal value." And that's what this looks like, right? And so being able for these wives to just come to a place where it's very overt. I work with a ton of men that are like, I'm not unwilling to meet her needs. She's telling me her needs all the time. I'm not I'm not getting that right. So
Yeah.
I tell couples all the time, like, you need to connect the dots. Hey, I want this. It does this for me. It's kind of like A equals B, and a spouse is like, oh, I didn't know when I do this, you feel super loved, and then when you feel super loved, you feel closer to me. It's like this,
Hmm.
oh, I can do that, right?
Right.
I had this personally for a while. My wife kept saying, it wasn't a specific action. I mean, there was a real period in our marriage where safety was an issue, and I wanted to be safe. But I was missing that, and I didn't understand why. And so she'd say, I need to feel safe. And I was like, what does that? And she was telling me, and it didn't compute. I was like, I do that, or why wouldn't that, why would that equal safety? And I remember actually debating her. I'm like, that doesn't equal unsafety, and it did for her,
Good for
right?
her. Right.
So,
Right.
we all have to learn, but in that context, like I needed her to be very like clear with like, hey, Austin, this
Hmm.
equals this, which does this, which allows this. And I was like, oh,
That makes sense.
okay, cool, let's do it.
Hmm.
So
Okay, so
if,
I'm gonna dive into question
yeah,
one. Okay.
go ahead. Yeah,
My spouse does not understand how important sexual intimacy is to me and our marriage. How can I help my wife to understand it is much more than physical to
yeah,
me?
yeah,
And I think that we hear that probably one of our
All the
top
time.
questions. And we're
right,
talking about kind of, and I know that not all husbands, it's all about wanting to be intimate. That's not always like the highest need for a lot of husbands. But
sure.
we hear from many, many husbands that same question.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really tricky because we talk about in this podcast all the time. When it comes to emotional intimacy, women can get a lot of emotional connection outside of the marriage from
Right,
sisters, from mothers, from best
right,
friends, from their circle of women groups, right?
right.
Where men don't always have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you bring up the sexual side of marriage, which is between only the two of you,
Right.
and the wife is more like, my needs are more over here. And I understand this can go other ways, go vice versa. I get that. But in this situation,
Mm-hmm.
when she can fill a lot of her needs outside of the marriage, and that one need can only be between husband and wife, and we've
Right,
discussed this
Yeah.
before,
right,
this is where this question comes from, right? Like, how do I make her help her, not make her help her understand how important this is to me when, maybe her hormone level is, she doesn't have the drive that you have. And we talk about that too,
right.
right? So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah, if
question.
we talk about this common dynamic, I think this is really valuable for both couples, both partners to understand. If we talk with like the stereotypical kind of high libido, low libido, and the question, right, coming from a man, how do I help my wife understand how important this is, right? Let's say in this relationship, he wants to be more sexual, she doesn't want to be as sexual, right? If both can realize that they both have to make a conscious effort outside of their, let's call it their feelings. So he has to tame his sexuality, right? He's like, hey, I'd love to be with you, whatever, 5 times a week. She's like, I want to be together once every 2 weeks, right? So
Mhm.
he's doing work to manage his sexual desire. If she's willing to bring hers up consciously, right? That's a conscious effort from two people
Conscious,
to
Yeah.
meet in a
absolutely.
place, right?
Mhm.
A conscious marriage is how you get to ultimate intimacy. It's a chosen relationship. This isn't just based on feeling day to day. It's we're committed to something that matters. And so, answering the question for this man, how do I help my wife understand that? I think it is going to her and talking about the ways that one he's trying to show up for her and check on that. Like, am I showing up and meeting what you want? Are you feeling happy? And truthfully, a lot of wives will say, yeah, this is great.
Mhm.
It's kind of the flip side of what I said earlier, right?
Yeah.
And he'll say, hey, I'm happy you're happy. Great. I'm missing something. That's a mature relationship to be able to, communicate those real things. But if he can focus on, like, it kind of goes back to this, like, connect the dots. If he can say, hey, like, this isn't really even about sex or orgasm or whatever for me. Like, this is the place I feel the most close to you and the most whole as a man, right? As men get older, especially, I see this in my practice. The physical component to sex becomes less and less important, meaning men will go, I don't really want sex if she's not present, if she's not, into it, if there's not desire, if she doesn't want to enjoy it, because the men become more attuned to like my emotional connection needs aren't met through the physical component of sex, just a body, right?
Mhm.
And so for this, for these guys in this situation, if they can communicate like, hey, this is about connecting to you. A lot of wives will say to me, they're like, I feel like it doesn't matter if I'm there or not. He wants sex. She's not getting, he wants sex with you because he wants to bond with you because he loves you. If a guy can communicate like the string of those components, with an intention of like, hey, I want this to be great for you. I want it to be a meaningful part of our relationship. And I do want to make sure I'm meeting the things that help you feel connected as well. Typically a wife is more open to, having that dialogue and trying to understand that.
This is this is where I get so confused because like we'll throw out, posts or like comments or whatever quotes about like why sex becomes sexual intimacy when there's kindness, respect, and love shown before, right? Like that
Mhm.
emotional connection comes first. And so many men are like, just there's that list again of things that have to happen before sex. And this is what gets confusing to me. It's
Should be a
because
way
like
of life. That
if
shouldn't be a
if
list.
you want your wife to desire it and to
Mhm.
want it and
Mhm.
to want you in that way, because that's what you're explaining. A lot of the men are explaining, like, I want her to want it, I want her to desire
Right.
me. It's not about sex, it's about being with her and uniting with her, right?
Right. Yeah, this
Then
is
those key things, kindness, love, and respect. We're not
right.
talking about romance in this checklist. We're just talking about like if you want it to be intimate, that
Right.
word intimate, right? Those things, like a man wants to give those things, right?
Right.
Naturally, right?
Yeah. I think that this comes back to a common, challenge we see in kind of the data and the research is, and we're not, nobody's taught this. Like we start to have, hormones and sexual desire as teenagers, and nobody's like, hey, a woman's sexuality is completely different than a man's, and
Mhm.
a lot of sexuality, we have kind of these stereotypical components, but there also is this idea of attachment styles do sexuality different. Esther Perel says, she says, tell me about your childhood and I'll tell you the way that you want to have a sexual relationship, right? It's very emotionally driven. And so to your point, Amy, right, when we talk about what are the prerequisites, well, men have much less prerequisites for good sex than women.
Mhm.
Understanding that that's just a reality allows you to have a recipe for good sex. The mistake men typically make is they go, well, the fact that she doesn't want it the same as me, they make a meaning behind it.
Yeah.
I'm not as important, I'm not as lovable, right?
I love me.
Having you're right, having that healthy understanding specific to your spouse, right? Like I had times for sure where I felt, rejected or unwanted. We'd even still have sex, but it was I felt like it was after this and after that and after that. And I did. I misinterpreted it until we had a dialogue. And she said, me wanting to do this or have you do this or whatever before, that doesn't mean I don't love you or I don't want to be with you. It's what I need to feel that desire and that passion. And so, right, the female sexual response is different than the masculine, than the male sexual response. And just that understanding, desire for most women is like step three, four for
Mhm.
a lot of women. Desire is step one for men,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And we can go deeper into that,
Yeah.
but I think explain, having a spouse convey like this is more than just I'm scratching an itch kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot, and truly for a majority of men, and right, like every couple I've ever worked with, sexuality is a component of this, right? So for a majority of men, it has nothing really to do with the physical. It really is the place where men feel the most emotionally connected. That's documented in the, in the data, in the research. Whereas just as you said for you, Amy, most women don't feel the most emotionally connected through sex. They feel it through emotional bonding.
Mhm.
And there's reasons for that, but
Right, right. I
Well,
mean, we don't need to dive all the way into that today, but I just and any listeners, please know that like we speak to women with higher drives. We understand this isn't every relationship. This is
sure.
just kind of a majority, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Let
was gonna
me,
say, it gets frustrating when you hear, well, he just wants sex. Well, if that was the case, every man out there would just go take care of himself, and we'd never have this imbalance or this problem,
mhm,
right? If if
right,
if it was physical, they take care of themselves, the marriage would be great, whatever. But it's
right.
not, and there's a
Yeah,
reason why
Mhm.
that it's not. Is a man can be in a very, very dark place, and if his wife is intimate with him, all of a sudden his whole world changes
right,
because now he's like, oh my heck, she loves me. Even if our marriage is struggling or, we're going through tough times, all of a sudden she loves me. Like we're
right.
still okay, right? And for I think most women, it's different, right? It's
Yeah,
different for men and women, but I think for most men, like that is absolutely the way they feel loved by their spouse, and
right,
it's so much more than just a physical thing.
And we've
right.
spoken about when we talk to these wives with the higher drives, like they understand how the husbands are feeling, right?
Yeah.
Right,
And they explain like I feel that rejection. I feel like all those feelings and I understand what they're feeling. And so we
right.
know it can obviously go the other way, but
Well, not
Yeah,
the subject, but in fact, we had a lady that went and got testosterone shots and things like that, and she became the high drive for a period of time. And
hmm.
her husband joked, "I was the one in the corner, curled up in the ball. Not tonight, honey, not tonight." But
Right,
she made a comment to us as we were joke. She was joking about this. She says, "If I never understood how my husband felt, and
right,
until now." And she's like, I will never reject him again because I now know as the higher desire
sure,
spouse for that time, like how important, how much he needed that,
right,
how much he wanted to be connected. And so,
Mhm.
that was interesting from a woman's standpoint that, with the lower desire spouse
right,
and reject him and things like that, all of a sudden she became the higher desire spouse. She's like, oh my heck, like
right.
this opened my eyes.
Right.
Right. Yeah. When I was in school, I was fortunate to be trained. Like all of my professors were renowned sex therapists. Like that was a major focus. We were in Las Vegas. We dealt with a lot of sexuality type things. And I remember one of the researchers we studied, they talked about four styles of sexuality. And the really important component of the research was basically no couple has chosen that style of sexuality. It kind of happens to them. And people don't know this. So when we come back to that concept of ultimate intimacy, and I know this from our conversations, right? You two have, I would say, cultivated that intimacy between you across the board. It's a conscious effort. Esther Perel's research on couples that all like both spouses after her criteria is at least a decade of being married, and both people have to report, I love our marriage, I'm passionate about my spouse, and I'm passionate about our sexuality, right? The core common thing across all the research, all the couples she met with is they've learned to choose each other again and again, right? And so understanding, yeah, almost every couple has high desire, low desire, and both people make that conscious intention, like you said, Nick, like most men, they don't want to go to pornography. They don't want to go to masturbation. They want to make love to their spouse. They don't want to always just a quickie where she's reading a book or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
they want her to be involved,
Mhm.
just like a wife wants him to be engaged. And so the core attachment need that can be met here, there's three, but the core one is, are you engaged in my well-being? Like, do I matter enough for you to go, hey, sex is an important part of our marriage. I'm gonna kind of be aware that it's been a minute, right? Or even if it hasn't been a minute, right? That's meeting the bare minimum, right?
Right.
Having that, that attitude, and then this is a choice, right? What type of marriage do you want? Do you want an ultimate intimacy marriage? Do you want a covenant relationship where your spouse is your most important person, trusting that reciprocation? Okay, then how do we navigate this ongoing for both? What are
Mhm.
my what are the things for my spouse that yes meet the needs, but also meet the wants? Maybe not all the time, okay? But like this, I'm engaged in your well-being. You matter to me. The other attachment needs are you available to me, right? If someone's consistently, putting the wall up,
Yeah.
right? That's not available. And then responsive to my needs. So, right, if someone's engaged in my well-being, that's their being proactive. My spouse is being proactive. I often don't have to, hey, are you available? And are you responsive to my needs? Because you're already doing that,
Right.
right?
Right.
But if it's getting to a place where I'm like, okay, like, are you available to me? Here's my need. And then you don't respond. Like,
Hmm.
that's what we call an attachment injury. And the bond begins to,
Yeah.
start to
Right.
feel stress, right?
And that's
Right.
what's happening in a lot of marriages, right?
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
like that you used the word engaged. So I was just thinking of some comments that we've gotten over, the last couple of years with the word engaged. And a lot of women will say, I want him to be more engaged, not just do the cleaning or do the parenting. I want you to be engaged with the kids. That's attractive to me.
Yeah.
I want you to be engaged in the house, like wanting to be part of the teamwork, unity part of that, right?
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
I relate that to I want you to be engaged in the bedroom.
Right.
Like
Yep.
if we want our husbands to be engaged and a part, like that's like figure out what's attractive to you, right? Like when he
Right.
plays with the children, that's so attractive to me. He's engaged, right? It's like another level, right? He's not just
Right.
there.
Right.
He's engaged. And I think the same thing goes for husbands when it comes to like intimate time. They
Yeah.
want the wife to be engaged. And so I think we just have to look like how can we be more engaged in our marriage so
Right.
that we're more unified, we're more in love, we're more that's
Right.
once again, it's two-sided. It always has to go
Right.
both ways.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things I do the most now with couples, and I encourage like our listeners to do this. I call it an invitational intimacy, right? It's hey, like there's a type of bond between us that is emotional and spiritual and sexual, and we work as parents and we work as, you know, running a household and whatever, right? And when so a lot of times I'm inviting a couple into that. Hey, do you guys want to create that? It works pretty good, right?
Ah,
Start to invite each other in without the like criticism, without the expectation, without, right? Like, hey, let's enjoy something amazing. There's a blueprint for great
right,
marriages, right? They
right,
have these components. And so the next kind of level with that is invite your spouse into, let's call it a higher type of marriage. There's all sorts of marriages look all sorts of different ways, right? People have a whole bunch of thoughts about
right.
what is marriage. Like I remember working with a guy and I said, like, do you treat her like your best friend? He's like, my friend? She's not my friend. She's my wife. Why would I want to hang out with her? I was like, well, you're probably not. That's probably why she doesn't want to
That's
have
right.
intimacy with you, right? But this idea of, hey, invite your spouse, like wherever you are, like it's not working. Okay. Hey, I would love to create a better relationship with you. Like you really matter to me. I want to demonstrate to our kids like how great it can be. I want to laugh. I want to play like when we were together in the beginning. Most couples I'm not gonna say every couple, but most couples don't get married if it wasn't good, really
Yeah.
good at one
Right.
point, right?
Yeah.
And for men, it's important to know, like, I would say almost 100% of women have more options than just you, right?
Yeah.
They did in the beginning. And that's not always the same for men for various reasons, okay?
Mhm.
But understanding that like she chose you, he chose you because of how you were showing up, and it was good, maybe not perfect, but good. It was good because you were both engaged, you were both available, you were meeting those needs. And then people get married and they get busy and they have kids and they go away from what works. So often with couples, I'm not trying to get them to go backwards. What I'm trying to help them see is like, hey, you've already done this. You've
Yeah.
already been there for each other in a way that you were both happy and like happy enough to bond yourself
Yeah.
together for
Right.
Yeah.
life and to
Right.
have children together and have a home and all that together. Like we need to get, re-including what works. That is
Love it.
intimacy. That is passion about the other person. That is availability. That is, right, thoughtfulness and
Mhm.
respect and all that type of thing. So,
That's a great way to end because I just feel like if you've been there, you were happy when you fell in love, you can absolutely get it back. You can
right,
absolutely get it back. And we
right.
talk about that all the time, right? It's
We
just,
do.
it comes down to being engaged,
What's the
Mhm.
first
intention.
Yeah,
what's the first question we ask when people contact us for everything?
Have you talked about that one?
Have you talked about it? Are you dating your spouse? Well, no, I'm not going on dates. We don't
right,
There
talk. I
you
mean,
go.
they stopped doing what they were doing when they were
Right,
dating,
right,
basically,
right.
right? Having that
right,
great communication, having fun together, going
Yep,
on dates,
yep,
and then
perfect.
they
Yep.
wonder why things aren't the way they
And
used
you
to be.
automatically answered my question, which was, are there ways to spark desire and intimacy without pressuring? And how do I like come approach my spouse about this? And you 100% answered that, right? Like it's
right,
an invitation. I love that you said invitation because it's like, okay, like let's start over and let's invite that fun and flirting and passion back into our marriage. And if they've
right.
done it before, they can do it
They
again.
can do it again, absolutely. Like we've
Absolutely.
talked
Yeah,
about many
Yep.
times, our switch flipped quick. It
yeah,
And it
wasn't like a long
continues. There's a
process.
lot of times in our marriage that we have to flip that switch back on. Like it, I
right,
mean, a month ago we had a really deep conversation. I was like, we need to bring this part of back into our marriage. We need to do better at this. And I'm probably gonna slip again and he's gonna have to flip it again.
Or I'll
right.
slip again.
And
And
that's,
it takes work, right?
it
Like it's a
does.
constant conversation and it's all comes down to the word that you said, and now I forgot it.
Engaged.
No, it was
And
um, crap, I should have wrote it down. I have a pen because I forget stuff. Anyways, just
yeah.
constantly pouring a
Mhm.
choice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll end with this. Like one of the things that I see so often, and I have to do this in my own relationship, like having like a system, right? Like this is a way of life because we can get distracted and busy, and because like my needs aren't the same as my wife, I don't have something in my brain necessarily saying, "Hey, go get this met." I have to create things that my brain or my calendar or my to-do list reminds me, "Hey, your marriage needs this nurturing," right? Like if you look at your marriage as a living, like a plant, let's say, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? It's like it needs water, it needs sunlight. Like if you don't nurture your relationship, it starts to struggle. And so, right, as responsible adults, like we have all sorts of responsibilities. Like magically we keep feeding our children, right? Like we do that
Yeah.
again and again, right? How do I keep feeding my marriage? How do I nurture this bond between us? We can prioritize our relationship. And I'll just end with this. I've studied the word priority, and we use it as a plural. Okay, like the actual word priority, you can't make it a plural. It's the top,
Yeah.
right? When we make our marriage a priority, everything works better between us and work, work is better and easier, providing for the family, household responsibilities, parenting, all that gets better when we prioritize the marriage.
Yeah. Everything seems so much less important.
Mhm.
Hmm. Right. Because, right, those core attachment needs with your core attachment person are met.
Right.
And then you're not needing to get that met everywhere else. It's met. Now you as husband and wife can take care of this whole
Mhm.
life that you have and children and, whatever that is. And so,
Love it.
vision is important in marriage, meaning inviting each other into like what this can be this week. Like, hey, let's have a great week. What does it include? Emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, sexual intimacy, time together, fun, playfulness. Like
Yeah.
we can go into that. But it's great when a couple creates that intention and then they follow through with it. So,
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
What a great episode.
Yeah.
Every bit of this was awesome. And then as we're having this episode, I'm just thinking of all the people that are gonna love this episode.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So
We're gonna have Austin on again every Friday as long as we can. If you have questions, audience, please just email us, amy@ultimateintimacy.com. Nick usually answers the emails. I'm not sure why we haven't switched it to his name, but Nick handles that. And if you have any questions you want us to ask Austin, if you have a situation you're going through or just anything, please throw out your questions or topics that you want us to discuss with Austin. He's
and we
amazing.
can keep it anonymous. So
We will absolutely keep it anonymous. So
Austin,
yeah.
great conversation.
yeah, thank you.
It.
Good.
And if all of you out there, if you have a hard time talking about these types of things or about sex, we have our Let's Talk About Sex conversation card decks that are great. You can find them in our shop, shop.ultimateintimacy.com. They're the best sponsor ever. The owners are pretty awesome as well. But we appreciate listening to the podcast. Thanks again, Austin. And until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.